Okay, what I want you to know is that what is a cloud surface first. Just using notepad to take some notes. And it's basically we just have a bunch of particles. These particles turn into volumetric data. Volumetric data. So VDB is one type of volumetric data. So basically, you've got some points. These points turn into. Let me just make the font bigger. These points turn into like thick pieces of like volumetric data, like cloudy data or misty data, and then the interaction happens in this level, and then you just render it or interaction or render or whatever. So like when you start, let me just go through. So let's say you got a object. I start with I don't know, a sphere, and you can change this sphere like to look not so sharp, like a little bit dented. So this is the object, and you want some points on this object. So why I added this object is this, if you remember, we start with particles or points. Let me just say it, actually points is a better way to mention it. So I want some points in the space. So I can say that scatter makes points, right? So it gives me like, how many points I've got here? 1,000 points. But I look at it, the problem is these points are, as you see, are on the surface of this thing. That's why in the middle we just used some offsetting, which makes this, this offsetting actually grabs these objects, makes a kind of a volumetric data out of it. So this is like, looks like a cloud, right? And if I scatter objects, now points are here now. There's plenty of points here. So let's say how many points? Let's say 100 points. So now this could be, so that's one strand of information you need here. Let me put them in a group for you, and we call it like geometry base, or like shape of the cloud. It's the shape of that cloud. The next round, I want you to learn this Pyro configuration. So we have some Pyro configuration, like let's say we're gonna create a bonfire, right? So I just drop it. This is just some templates. Oh, that's plenty. Let me just grab something more simpler. Pyro configure. Actually, we have some sparse pyro stuff here. Just a basic sparse smoky below. Below is smoke. Let me. Below, okay, configure below is smoke. Let's drop it here. So what is the, so this is just a basic smoke, which is coming out of a donut. So there's a donut here. Then donut has some pyro source on it, which pyro source is basically is a lot of points. like pretty much what we saw. And these points have a velocity attached to them. So you see that there's this attribute adjust vector velocity. So like here, velocity means speed. Like these particles have a speed. Now rasterize them, which means create the cloud out of it. Now this is the dynamic simulator for you, which is the brain. As you see, it has a brain. So it's a Pyro solver. What happens in the Pyro solver? It says that so the important part is this part. So each one of those points which tend into volumetric data, they can carry like information, like qualities, physical qualities. One of them is density. Like think of a mist, like a cloud, is either very like see-through or very dense. So density is that one. Temperature is how hot it is. So let's say flame or smoke is hot. That's why it's go up. And then this is just baking, not important, which gives it some color. If I skip it, that's not important. So it's the structure is very simple. So this one goes up because it's smoke. So by just looking at this very basic example, we realize that we can go through the same process apart from temperature. So we can have everything, but not temperature. Then there's something very interesting here, which is this node. So the brain you saw here, one of the job of the brain is to simulate it, to give like movements to it. But there is an input to it which says collision geometry. This is where you plug your character moving in, and it just collides with your Pyro. Okay. So let's build up something out of this. So as you realized, here we just need we've got a bunch of points, right? Maybe let it 1,000 points. And these points so we move to the next phase, which is the cloud generation. So I add a Pyro source. So when I click on it, the Pyro source here says that it's a volume scattering, and there's a particle separation on it. So I just do the same thing. I say that it is volume scattering. I could skip these two. Then I get my volume scattering on that thing. So these two I use it because if I don't use volume scattering, I still can keep the input and have Pyro source attached to it. We don't need velocity because your cloud is not supposed to move. There's no speed on them. They're static. So I don't do that, but we have to rasterize. Volume what we're looking for, volume rasterize attributes. That's the one we're looking for. Okay, so if you don't see anything, so first you have to be able to see things right away there, right? Here you see, hello. Here you see that so you see that here I can see the rasterization even without the speed. So when I turn this on, one of the reasons is that these particles on here are tiny, very tiny, and very close to each other, right? So my particles here are not that much. So what I can do, I can have less particle selection, and I can, instead of me generating those particles, I'm gonna leave this to generate particles for me. What happens? Oh, here I have to say volume scale. Oh, that's a lot of particles. Okay, I think that's enough for me. That's enough of particle distribution. So again, we can drive the point positioning, or we can let the Pyro source to generate point positioning in the space. Do you remember the very basic things? We need some points. These points has to turn into volumetric data. So they have to turn into volumetric data. Here, the rasterized attribute here. Oh, okay. So these points that have been scattered on the, let me just go to the beginning, on all around, okay. So this rasterizer asks what kind of volumetric data you want to generate. Is it going to be density? Is it going to be temperature? So what we're looking for is density. So density is generated. I have to be able to see it smaller. Pyro source. Oh, density has been generated. Okay, I have not sourced density yet. So I have create a attribute here. Density. Okay, so that was my bad. So I should have created density early on. Okay, let me just delete these two. And I'm gonna delete these two as well. So we just go through it nice and neat. So this is where we generate our shape of the cloud. This could be this shape. This could be, I don't know, test object. This could be like this little cloud that looks like this little stupid animal, right? So it could be anything. So then that is so horrendous. Let me just lower down. So you Pyro source, which you basically say, give me some points on it, but points inside of it. And you can increase the amount of the points. So point separation is half. So keep that in mind. This is like one of the most important attributes all through. So point separation is how close these points together. So 0.05 is what we're looking for. Also, I say that, hey, generate some density for us, and then use density to rasterize volume rasterize attributes. So density. So we say that 10 dose density. Do you remember particle separation? We can use the same particle separation number we had here for the voxel size. I usually say do this. I say that copy this parameter, and here I say paste relative reference. So what does it mean? It says that every time you change this, let's go one, this voxel size changes too, you see? So I have connected these two attributes together. So that's just convenient. So that was the shape, right? This is the cloud making, right? And after that, what you need is just a brain to simulate that for you. What I usually do for the clouds, I add an environment light just to see it properly, not environment lights actually. Give me, so let me undo that. Skylights, because skylights are pretty. I can rotate them around so to get like some good understanding of what's happening and the shape of the cloud. Okay. I could go smaller on the shape of it, on the particle suppression, but let's do it later. Okay, so now we have cloud. So that was cloud creating. We want to start cloud behaving. So you need a brain. You need a solver. What kind of solver you need? So we have different type of solvers for different type of physical properties. So like things hitting at each other, we use RBD solver. Things like cloth and things like that, we use vellum solver. But for the volumetric data, we have Pyro solver. So we add a Pyro solver. So when we play, so you see that it has something in it, because Pyro solver, if I press P, so this is how I work, by the way. You can, let me just, so you can work in two ways. I found this not a bit too cluttered, so I select, so whenever I need attributes, I just press P. P stands for parameters. So here, in the shape, you have a bit of buoyancy, which means like goes up. So there's a bit of field, which is dissipation, which says that this starts to dissipate. A bit of flame attributes and things. I turn them off. So it should still there's a bit of movement on it. Buoyancy off. How can I? Okay, there's no temperature. No temperature, no flame, no velocity. It's just a piece of cloud. Hello, Victoria. Don't do anything. Okay, we come back and we find which one is causing shape. Reset simulation. Quick setup. Let's get inside. So we have a force, but there's no force attached. We have a force outputs, advection, there's nothing attached to them, so we should be fine. So one way to make it look like a cloud is to just add a bit of wind to it, like a very weak wind towards up. So here, like, usually is like this. So you just make it 0. Add a bit of disturbance, very little. Add a bit of turbulence. I usually make the turbulence on up. Okay. On the density field. And swirl size is like smaller because I want them to swirl. So it starts to just like do some behavior, but it's just too much to me. These two also much less. Yeah. So this is more of a living cloud, but shape changing much slower. As you saw, there's plenty of like clouds, how to make clouds with Pyro source. If you see this like boxy, it's because of particle separation. So you go here, you make it, I'm gonna go, you make this finer, but I don't do it now. I do all of my actions first and then I do this. So the question was, I've got a cloud, so like, so that was cloud creating, let me just make this and call it, this is cloud simulating. So how to have the question, the main question was how to have an object. I just bring a sphere here, and this sphere has a transform on it, and the transformation starts from here. Press K, I just turn off the brain for a while so it doesn't simulate. So, and then like here that one passes through the cloud. K on keyboard to keyframe. So we have an object traveling through. So the question is how this object can interact with my cloud. So as I said, there's this little collision geometry here, which you just can plug into it. But here in the collision, you have to say that my collision is a collision geometry. Use deforming geometry. We have to make sure that this is checked because this is a geometry that is moving, right? So why it's not? So I'm gonna merge these two together so we see them both. It's not colliding the way I like. Okay, so I carry on. So how to make this ball? We have added this ball, and we want this to interact with our object. It does a bit of collision, but it's a very coarse collision now, so there's no velocity traveling through. First of all, we make sure that, let's go back to our cloud, we make sure that in the simulation, in this brain, if you remember, we had this particle separation. We just make sure that this particle separation has come to this rasterization voxel size. We want it to come to this voxel size here as well. So I paste a relative parameter here. So this particle separation is reflected here on the voxel size, is reflected here on the voxel size, if you see. So we just make sure that this travels through nice and neat. So our object here, like let's look at the object we have, this ball here. When it travels through, and I'm going to turn off the brain for now. So when it travels through, if I turn on the velocity, this is the velocity or point trail or the speed of each point in the space. So you see that there's no speed on them. So these points don't have speed on them. So here we use a, let me just add another T. So what I do, I add a node called point velocity, which I'm saying that add velocity to each point. So let me just just get rid of this for now. We'll add it again. So what this point velocity does, if we look at this, this time, you will see that, oh, each point is picking up some sort of a velocity. This is like a very directional velocity. A bit of noise doesn't hurt, so I add some curl noise, increase the scale of it. Like a little bit of smaller swirl size, which I like. Okay, so now this ball is transferring a lot of energy through, right? So what I do after that, so I come to the brain here, so the solver. So what I do here, I say that give me, in the quick setup of the solver, give me a setup SDF collision. So it drops it automatically drops a kind of a, this is a VDB conversion, VDB from polygon. Note that he's made for the collision. So like see that it has everything, and it has point.v, which is the velocity here. So it set up everything for us. I don't think we have to do anything here. So now what we have to be able to see, I just grab this from here to that, to be able to see is that this ball should travel and starts, oh no, oh. Is it colliding? So now let's have a look at collision here. So here collision says SDF, it has a collision, it takes the velocity from here. I think all we need is to go back and set it a little bit finer. I'm gonna go back. Oh, I know what's the problem. The brain was off. Actually, I just put it back to somewhere around, not too fine, but like something manageable. So now we see, hopefully, yeah, it starts colliding with the, so the let me just type P. The collision object is colliding with our Pyro. It's a beautiful collision. So to recap, what has just happened is that what we need is to ask our solver to give us a SDF collision. What is that? It's just basically it converts our collision object into a volumetric data, because volumetric data talks to each other. Then with this point velocity, we just added some. So if I middle click on the node, you see this V added. V means velocity with speed. So this speed is added on the points. So now it just like hits it and just passes. This is too dramatic. Of course, this is not what you're looking for. You're looking for something more you know, less dramatic.